What if I told you there are entire cities in the world with no ground under them at all? No roads, no dirt, no land, just water, and the people who figured out how to build a life on top of it. Four different groups of people on four different continents looked at the exact same problem, joint, there's no land here, and came up with four completely different answers. One of them literally evolved a bigger organ to survive it. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how, and I promise the last one is the strangest. High up in the Andes, 12,500 feet above sea level, sits Lake Titicaca, and floating on it are islands that were never found. They were built hundreds of years ago, when the aggressive Inca Empire was expanding across the land. A resourceful group of people called the Euros decided that instead of fighting a war on land, they would just leave it behind entirely. The Euros people don't live on land. They live on artificial islands made entirely of totara reeds, a thick, buoyant grass that grows naturally in the lake's shallows. They harvest it, dry it, layer it, and weave it into a dense, floating platform thick enough to walk on, build a house on, even safely light a cooking fire on. Here's the mini mystery: reeds rot. So how has this worked for centuries without everyone sinking? The answer: they never stop building. The lake water constantly attacks the bottom of the island, turning it to mush. To combat this, families must add a fresh layer of crisp, dry reeds on top every few weeks. Because of this, the island is never actually finished. It's basically alive, constantly being rebuilt from above, while it slowly dissolves into the lake from below. Living on a floating mattress of grass also changes how you deal with your community. There are dozens of these islands on the lake today, anchored to the bottom with long eucalyptus poles so they don't drift into another country overnight. But what happens if a family gets into a massive dispute with their neighbors? They don't pack up their bags and move out. They literally take a giant saw, cut their island completely in half, untie their side, and float away to a different part of the lake. Now let's cross the world to the warm waters between the Philippines, Malaysia, and Indonesia, home to the Bajau, universally known as the sea nomads. The Uros built islands to escape the land, but the Bajau took things a step further. They don't just live on the water in houseboats and stilt huts. They have practically become part of the ocean itself. Members of this community can spend up to 60% of their daily working hours underwater, hunting fish, crabs, and pearls with nothing but a wooden spear, a pair of homemade wooden goggles, and no tank, no scuba gear, and no fins. Just their lungs. Some elite Bajau divers can hold their breath for an unbelievable 13 minutes, diving down to depths of 200 feet on a single breath of air. To put that in perspective, the average untrained person starts panicking and gasping for air after just 30 to 45 seconds. At 200 feet deep, the crushing water pressure is so intense it forces human lungs to compress to a fraction of their normal size. So, scientists eventually went looking for the why. How is this humanly possible? In 2018, a groundbreaking study published in the journal Cell found something absolutely remarkable. Through generations of seafaring life, the Bajau's spleens have physically evolved to be about 50% larger than their non-diving neighbors. Think of your spleen like a biological oxygen tank. When you dive deep, your body undergoes a dive reflex, where the spleen automatically contracts, squeezing oxygen-rich red blood cells out into your system to keep your brain alive. A spleen that is 50% larger means a massive extra reserve of oxygen for a longer dive. And researchers discovered this wasn't just a physical trait you get from a lifetime of practice, it's written directly into their DNA. Genetic evolution in a human population alive today, shaped entirely by the ocean. They didn't just build tools to survive on the water, their bodies literally adapted to it. In fact, many Bahaus spend so much of their lives on boats that they report feeling landsick when they try to walk on solid ground. The stillness of the earth messes with their balance. This next one isn't a village or a nomadic tribe, it's a massive, thriving city. Welcome to Kampong Ayer, which literally translates to Water Village, located in the nation of Brunei. Tens of thousands of people live here, connected by a sprawling, intricate maze of wooden walkways and bridges, built entirely on wooden and concrete stilts over the wide Brunei River. And this isn't some rustic temporary settlement or an afterthought. Kampong Ayer has its own fully functioning schools, mosques, restaurants, police stations, and even a modern hospital, all standing proudly on stilts above the rushing water. When European explorers first sailed into this region hundreds of years ago, they were so stunned by the sight that they nicknamed it the Venice of the East. Except there's a major difference. Venice built stone buildings on solid ground and carved canals into it later. This city was engineered entirely for the water from day one. Because there are no traditional roads, infrastructure has to be incredibly clever. Electricity cables and plumbing pipes run hidden right underneath the wooden boardwalks. Instead of cars, the city relies on a massive fleet of rapid water taxis, speedboats that zip between houses like city buses. They even have a specialized water fire department with speedboats outfitted with high-powered water pumps because a standard fire truck is completely useless here. Kids here grow up walking to school over open water every single day. For them, there is no solid ground version of normal. Last one, and this might be the cleverest, most practical engineering of them all. In Bangladesh, one of the most low-lying and flood-prone countries on the planet, local farmers have figured out how to grow massive amounts of crops with absolutely zero soil. During the annual monsoon season, intense floods completely submerge up to 2/3 of the country, drowning traditional farms and triggering widespread food shortages. To survive, Bangladeshi farmers gather water hyacinth, an aggressive, fast-growing invasive waterweed, and weave the long stems into thick, tightly packed floating mattresses called baira. Once the floating base is stable, they pile compost, manure, and coconut husk on top and plant their seedlings directly into it. Here is the absolute genius part. When the devastating monsoon floods roll in and drown every regular farm in sight, these farms don't care. They just rise. The floating garden acts like a raft, lifting up perfectly with the rising water levels.